Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that's changing the way businesses retain their attorneys. Go to gertzberglaw.com to learn more. While you're there, check out Cover My Six, a complete legal audit of the 6 areas that most often create or prevent business lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how we keep you safe. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
Well, and I always say the next level of success requires the next level of discipline.
Hi, Jeanne Coughlin.
Hi, Alex.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Are you having a good day?
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Did you have a good weekend?
It was a beautiful summer weekend.
Are you
absolutely perfect?
Are you describing the weather, or are you describing the kind of weekend that you had?
Well, that's a good question. I was doing a lot of work around the house, so maybe not perfect in that sense, but we had a bonfire Saturday night with some neighbors, and it was just gorgeous weather.
It was gorgeous weather. You know what I did this weekend?
Cleaned out your closets?
No, I got engaged.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was lovely, yeah. Have you ever been to this restaurant over here called Sapphire Creek?
Yeah, a long time ago,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's where we did it. And it was, so there's, the owner of Sapphire Creek is actually a former guest on this podcast, Kim McCune. She's amazing. And we went there, and I pre-staged the ring, you know.
Oh, that is awesome.
Was
it a total surprise to your fiance?
I don't think it was a total surprise.
Okay.
I think she saw it coming, but she acted very surprised, and she was very happy, and she obviously said yes, and so it was a good weekend for me too.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
Very exciting.
So, Jeanne Coughlin, you are and I'm just gonna read the entire list. And by the way, I should say, ordinarily, Molly and I would be bantering for like 20 minutes and talking about you behind your back. Molly's not here, and me bantering by myself isn't fun for anybody. So I'm going to go down this list about you that our crack research team has uncovered about all of these neat things in your past and present. Certified stages of growth strategist, one-page business plan implementer, certified professional behavior and motivators analyst, all of which is to say that you are a business coach with multiple layers of coaching style and strategy and complexity there. Is that a fair description?
That's fair.
And then there's the more formal stuff. You're the president of the Coughlin Group, Inc., and you have been since 1993. You are chapter chair of the Women Presidents Organization since 2006. You have been for the past several years the vice chair of the Jumpstart Board of Directors. Mm-hmm. This is your life. All true so far?
Keeps me out of the bars.
You are a published author. You wrote The Rise of Women Entrepreneurs, People, Processes, and Global Trends. True?
Yeah,
Still true? I'm not making anything
Still not
up?
fabricated.
A graduate of the 2003 Leadership Cleveland class, Entrepreneurial Leadership Award recipient from the Cleveland State University, Crane's Cleveland Business Notable Women in Entrepreneurship for this year. That's a new one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And there's more, and I would just keep going here, but I would then really eat into the question time. Just a few more. Geez. You were past board member of the Greater Cleveland Partnership, past chair of the Cozy Board, on which I currently sit, and gobs of other titles and accolades. And so my first question is, geez, Jeanne, I mean, where do you find, how is one of the things on your list here, manufacturer of time and hours of the day? Where do you find the time and the motivation and the energy to do all of this stuff?
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, that's 26 years of experience really rolled into that long list. It is funny you say that manufacturing time. I remember years ago, being on a panel. The White House had come to Cleveland with the Department of Labor. And my husband said to me, I was preparing for the interview, and he said, you have this idea of time being like a balloon,
Right.
where you put more things in and time just grows and grows and grows. And he said, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, really. In fact, I mean, for me, I feel like it's a shrinking balloon, if there's such a thing, right? It's more like a vice.
yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah.
But most of the things that I just read off are still like present tense. There only a couple things at the end were past tense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you're still wearing a lot of hats right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's when it's things that you're passionate about, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see the common theme there is entrepreneurs and economic development, and that is definitely something I'm passionate about. So,
Let's drill down on that. Where does that passion come from, and how did you acquire it? What was the journey to at least the present manifestation of that passion?
Yeah. It's definitely my dad. I grew up in a big family. There were 7 of us kids, still are. And, my dad raised and sort of kept a roof over our heads working as a electrician. But on the side, he had multiple businesses at any given time, that he was building and growing. And so, yeah, I think that's probably it. I just have always had an affinity to entrepreneurs and small business and sort of what that's all about, what it takes to start and grow a business. So
the Coughlin Group is the coaching business that you have, right? And geez, since 1993?
Yeah.
My math is horrible, Jeannie. How many years is that?
It's 26 years. Wow. I incorporated October 15th, 1993 as an S Corp. And been in business so long. Well, I don't think I'm employable anymore is what that means.
No, neither of us are. So most of our clients here are businesses and business owners. And for the startups that walk through this door, I usually tell them that I think our wiring is different than everyone else, right? Number one, it is the wiring that makes you want to take risk over security.
Absolutely.
In exchange for the unlimited upside that security does not allow you to have.
And freedom to a certain extent, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting that you say that. What buckets do you put that freedom into? Freedom of
choices. Yeah. And it really is that unlimited opportunity.
Yeah.
And adapting and adjusting as you see the need.
Yeah. And what was the journey to coaching?
Great question. So when I started my company in 93, my focus was really working with these privately held companies as sort of an interim sales and marketing executive. And that evolved over time to where I am now, which is more the performance-based strategic planning and performance management implementation. And what I saw along the way is that even the most motivated people, myself included, need that ongoing coaching and accountability. And so it really came out of a need for the clients. I used to think, I'll come in and help you create this great system and, get everybody up to speed and trained. And then you guys got this, right? You got it. You're good. know, and I would kind of back away. And it was my clients that said, no, we need you to stick around. We need your help implementing.
And you have kind of a niche, don't you?
Yeah.
What's your niche?
Well, privately held companies, for sure, just because of the culture that comes from a person who owns that and is invested in it. But then over the years, what developed was a specialty in family business. I think part of that is because family is so important to me. Again, growing up in that big family, my dad always said, if you never have anybody else in this world, you have your family. And so I think I have had an affinity to family businesses that developed as sort of a specialty niche without really, it wasn't intentional. So
what's different about running and coaching a family business than running and coaching, or I should say running or coaching any other kind of business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the obvious first thing is, think about your family of origin, as they call it, growing up. Everybody, no matter how great of upbringing you had. There's dysfunction. So now think about the difficulties of running and growing a business, which you do, and then combine those two images. And, that's the obvious big challenge or difference related to a family business. I find, and again, this is part for me of the passion of working with family businesses, is they all tell me how much they value family and how much they want the family. I'm working with a family business now that's out of state, and they're really, challenged with the pressure that the business is putting on those family relationships.
Right.
And so that's number one, and that's huge. And a big part of my process is oriented towards understanding the personal differences of the family members and helping them with that. I think probably a big second difference is a lot of family businesses, and it's true with a lot of small business or privately held, but they tend to lack a formal process more frequently than non-family businesses, in my experience. Part of that is oftentimes the family members grow up in the company and they may not have been at like an Eastman Kodak where I first learned about process and how businesses run. And so there's a huge need there. And then I think probably the third big difference is in a family business, the founder is more likely to want to stick around and less likely to be thinking about a transition plan. I think they become so embedded with their identity in the business. And so those succession issues are more challenging, I find.
Yeah. I would kill everyone in my family if I had to work with them or fire them. And they would say the exact same thing about me if they were sitting here right now, with the exception of my sister who works here, I think happily. But yeah, I mean, there's so much emotion that and so much history.
Right.
Right. And I'd love to hear how you break through the dysfunction that comes with every family.
Yeah.
Right? How do you, what's the process? How do you do it?
Yeah. I think a couple things. Number one is a lot of times being that trusted advisor from the outside and just being able to ask the hard questions. You would think family, because of the familiarity, would naturally be good at that, coming around the boardroom table and talking, but they're not. And I think part of it is, again, how we act in families. If you pretend everything's okay, you just kind of sweep it under the rug. You don't, confront your brother with whatever he did that made you angry. So bringing that structure and having a facilitator to kind of help draw it out. The personal assessments are also a big part of that. I use a combination behavior motivators assessment. And so, the light bulb will go off for mom and dad to say, oh my gosh, well, no wonder you're always the one that's impatient and, getting angry, and you're the one who's kind of backing away from conflict. And so that, I find those assessments to be a real game changer in any business, but especially the family business.
How do you get your clients to not automatically default to emotional stories that I gotta believe are more prevalent in family run operations?
Yeah,
right? I mean,
they are.
to me, the emotion comes from the story,
right,
or maybe causes the story.
Yeah.
And so when you've got clients and they're in a room and they're just that you see that story, those assumptions, just running on autopilot, and they're pulling things from their childhood. And, you know what I mean? Like, so how do you maintain or reestablish, I should say, some kind of business sense there that breaks through that emotion?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think this is true even in non-family businesses, but I love process. Now, you have to layer on top of the process everything we're talking about now, which is the emotion and the people. But I'm a huge believer that getting different results in business, planning what that's all about, is changing behaviors. You can't implement a strategic plan unless everybody's changing their behaviors, including you as the business owner. So in a family business, it's just that on steroids, right? You're with a consistent process, always going back to, where are we trying to go? Why are we doing it? How did we say we would be able to get there? It is true, though, sometimes those stories are so deeply embedded. I just had a conversation with a family business member last week that the better option for the family really is to sell the business or to bring in a non-family member CEO, because and I try real hard to be that person. I'm holding up the mirror basically and kind of helping them realize some of those deep-seated patterns.
Well, so how do you change their behavior? So are you saying you've mentioned structure and processes. What's an example of that?
Okay. So the whole planning process, and good strategic planning is not like there's anything new that's been invented. It really is figuring out where you want to go. What are you building? What's that preferred future look like? And with a family business, of course, the nuance there is who gets to decide that. And, ideally it's a collaborative effort, but ultimately at the end of the day in a privately held company, it's, good to be the king. You own the business, you get to say. But ideally you've got, people buying into that idea and really drawing on that emotion of what it could be and what they all want it to be. And it's not cliche, really. It really is that idea of creating that vision and getting everybody's buy-in and getting their hearts, bought into that. And then from there, it's kind of like a drilling down process. It gets more and more tactical and specific as you go. So, let's say that you're the family member who's over the sales and marketing process. A behavior change might be is something as simple as you're reaching out to your biggest clients on a monthly basis and you're committing to your family members, you're going to do that. That's really, if you take that whole planning process and distill it down, it's really like drilling down to each layer,
right,
and saying, what are the behaviors that I, as an individual in my role, need to do more consistently to get the outcomes I'm looking for. Sometimes with a business owner, I've had this many times, it's getting them to commit to meeting one-on-one with their direct reports on a consistent basis. Creating a good agenda that's got the same 3 questions you ask every time you meet that ensure you're really getting at the strategic topics you need to get to and not talking about the latest kersnuffle with a big customer,
And then how do you establish and then track and maintain accountability?
Yeah.
So once somebody commits to a promise or whatever obligation they're going to have, how do you get them to be accountable?
Yeah, that's the key. So I have a proprietary planning process that I created called CG1. And CG1 is essentially what we're talking about. We create clarity, we focus behaviors, and we measure results. And so I'm a proponent of a monthly plan review meeting. I frequently use a web-based planning tool called the One-Page Business Plan. And in that plan, everybody is committing to metrics, again, about their personal performance and or their department, and then project timelines. That's really a huge component of the process, is being able to figure out what are those game-changing projects or initiatives that are going to get the business to the next level, and then reverse engineering that into a timeline with milestones and people reporting every month.
What do you do with the chronic excuse maker?
Oh, yeah. It's it's bad.
I bet you anything. I have to believe, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has this question, but I have to believe that all the business owners listening right now have one or have had one in their midst.
Yeah.
And that's, you don't really know that they're an excuse maker when you hire them.
Right.
But they're there.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you deal with them when you're trying to establish and track that accountability?
Oh, man, it is rough sometimes. I remember a client coming in, we had the offsite, we did the plan, kind of that gyrations of working it out. And we got together for the first plan review meeting. And this guy's sitting at the end of the conference room table with his arms folded and, just really. And, we went around and everybody talks about kind of where they hit their milestones, where they didn't, and why, where they need help. And it got to him, and he said, I was too busy to update my plan. And here's the ideal. Everybody looked at him. I didn't have to be the one to beat him over the head. Everybody looked at him and said, well, we were busy and we got our plan updated. So ideally, it's peer pressure. And ultimately, when this works well, what I'm doing is helping that business owner and that team change their culture. And that particular client, we've been working together for 6 years now. And if you ask the owner, that is what he would tell you. Their entire culture has changed. It used to be people could get away with that. I was too busy, And now it's, if you do the work, you want the guy next to you to do the work. It's not fair.
Yeah. Have we talked about how you help them change your culture? Because I have that as a separate question.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you've, clearly some of the things that you've just talked about contribute to changing their culture, like the concept of accountability and the idea of synchronizing your vision into a one-page strategic plan. But culture to me is, A, it's so important.
Right.
B, people have different opinions and ideas of what it means. And C, that seems like one of the most difficult things to change.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you change a corporate culture?
Yeah, it's a great question. And anybody who's run a company understands, and the clients that you work with, you get that. You walk into a company and you can feel the culture. And so the answer to the question is it's hard. It's not like it's an easy fix. And generally, if I look at the companies that I'm working with on a consistent basis, that's the thing that comes later in the process. And again, now I am a process person. So to me, it's kind of a visual. Like if you imagine, you need the strong foundation, right? You need the good process and systems. You can't, I believe, go in at that higher level of the culture and put training programs or assessments in place and then try to change it there, because it falls flat. People, they just can't sustain it. And so part of the planning process is helping that business owner identify the values that should always be an important part of any strategic plan. And so ultimately, how you change the culture is linking the values in that plan to the day-to-day behaviors. And there's that word again, that will support those values. So here's a practical example. I was with a business executive team, and one of their values is integrity. And I was getting feedback from some of the senior leadership team that they heard other members of the senior leadership team second guessing decisions they'd made behind their back. Well, so we kind of talked through that. What are examples of integrity? What does integrity mean? And a great example of integrity is if you disagree with somebody, you tell them to their face, And so just those practical drawing down of what that value means on a day-to-day basis, and then being able to document it and articulate it. We take for granted that people get that. And I think especially that whole, the Stephen Covey 7 Habits book I loved. Gosh, it's an oldie but goodie now. But, that whole thing of you really shouldn't say something behind somebody's back you're not going to say in front of them. Those kind of integrity building. So yeah, it's not an overnight fix, that's for sure. And it takes, not surprisingly, consistency from the leadership.
Yeah. So you and I talked about traction and EOS, and so we have been self-implementing EOS for the last 4 or 5 months now. I love it.
That's great.
Yeah. Without any question, would have gotten much farther faster if we had gotten a professional implementer. But we made the call. We went this way, and we're very happy with it. But one of the things that I love about that book, which I think is true of all systems and all coaching processes, is you gotta have patience. Nothing happens overnight.
That is so true.
Yeah, I mean, so I imagine that's something that is a way that you have to manage your clients' expectations on a regular basis.
It is. Well, and I always say the next level of success requires the next level of discipline. And that discipline isn't, like you will follow the rules and, that
Right.
like I'm going to hit you over the.
It's a great German accent.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
But it's consistency and discipline in how you do things, and meaning what you say. And, it really is those small daily disciplines. Yeah. So you're right. It takes patience.
Let me ask you a more fundamental question. Who should get a business coach? When should a business owner or executive feel like it's time, or that they should start thinking about getting one?
Yeah. Well, not that I'm biased, but Bill Gates said everybody needs a coach. In his infamous TED Talk, I think every coach uses that quote. But in all sincerity, I'm in a group coaching scenario for myself with 2 other business owners. The 3 of us all have somewhat similar businesses, so we, do the work of helping each other. Ultimately, this is when I think of what a coach helps you with. They help you get and keep your focus. And so, I think a lot of people, if you think about it, if you're lucky enough to have somebody on your team that serves that role for you, you might not need an outside, professionally certified business coach. It's really more a question of who's providing you with that perspective. Who's that person who helps you get and keep your focus? And, business coaching, it's funny, I was on a call, my monthly business call with a family business member, and she said she'd hired a life coach. And that would be, typical, because a business coach is at a completely different level. And, on the personal side, she was looking for somebody to help her with that kind of focus. So, so you may not need to engage an outside business coach, but everybody does need somebody who can give them that perspective.
I'll one up you on this.
Okay.
I think everyone has to get a coach, and I do think that it has to be someone that is a stranger to them. And so I think I told you this when we met for coffee. The way I got to my coach was because I read a book 15 years ago called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like 68 principles, concepts that he put together after interviewing all of these big CEOs and presidents and billionaires and everything. And one chapter was get a coach. And it was the shortest chapter in the whole book. And it's like a page and a half. And it's similar to your Bill Gates quote. It reads something like this. Michael Jordan had a coach. Tiger Woods had a coach. What makes you think you don't need a coach?
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
These guys are the best athletes in their field in the world.
Right.
And they still had a coach.
Yeah.
To me, it's so obvious that one of the differences between the great entrepreneurs and the mediocre entrepreneurs is ego and how they listen to their ego and what their relationship is with their inner voice.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's a great point.
I could not possibly imagine a business world that I have for myself if I just had to rely on the voice in my head. I would have run this law firm into the ground years ago. So I do think everyone needs one. On that note, how would one go about finding the right coach for themselves?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. It's I think like anything, referrals and really talking with people that you know and trust, and finding out who they've worked with, who they've heard of. It's funny, there's a quote by Tolstoy about happy families. Have you heard that one? He said, happy families are all alike, but unhappy families are unhappy in their own unique ways. And I think whether you're talking about a business consultant or a business coach, what you're looking for, the way that they're good, they're all good for those same reasons, right? They ask great questions. They care about you. They maintain your confidence. They're curious. They're good at sort of picking things apart and diagnosing them and asking the difficult questions, but doing it in a kind way. But there's, bad consultants and coaches, and they're all bad in their own way. So, are they certified? That's probably never a bad thing to look for. Do they have a track record? But at the end of the day, I think most people, it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking with your network.
Yeah. And getting references from them and talking to their other clients.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. So when have you, Jeannie, you've been doing this 26 years. 26 years?
Yeah.
In the course
trying
of
to
those,
make me feel old, or what's up with that?
I'm setting up these next two questions.
Okay.
When have you felt totally gratified in your work for your clients in those 26 years?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I would say, well, I'm just going to, kind of think out loud here. For sure, when they've said things to me like, you've changed our culture, or you're like a member of our team. I've had a client say it's different when you don't show up. And when they tell me they can tell I care about their business, if I'm doing my job right, I'm not only improving the business, but I'm improving the lives of the people in the business. And we did a assessment of my brand, my marketing firm 2 years ago, and they interviewed several clients and referral sources. And I'm trying to think of what the folks said when they were interviewed, but it was really humbling, to read. I think it's mostly that I care and that I help them make change, because change is hard. I think one of the things I've realized over the years is that I have to meet people where they're at. And that's hard. I take personally, if a company is struggling or a business owner is struggling, and you can't change somebody. You can only help them figure out what they want to change or adapt in their business.
And it's it's interesting because if you subscribe to the what gets measured gets managed philosophy, right? Measuring your success seems like it would be objectively it seems like it would be very difficult to say, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. I was about to say it seems like it would be difficult to measure objectively, like in a numerical basis.
Right, right.
The before Jeannie and the after Jeannie world, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe you see objectively verifiable changes when you change your culture.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen any kind of objectively verifiable changes in the pre-Jeannie and post-Jeannie corporate history of any of your clients?
Yeah, well, there's a great testimonial on my website from one of my longtime clients. They talked about increasing revenue, improving the sense of team, several new initiatives that got started that they felt would not have happened were it not for the process. And again, changing their culture to one of accountability.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. And you know what it is, Alex, a lot of times, and you probably feel this in your firm, when you're always looking forward, you feel like, oh, we got more to do. We're not there yet, right? Because you're always achieving. But if you stop and look back and then ask yourself, all right, well, what's gotten better since we started this process? Back to that whole point of patience that you made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a much more difficult question for you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So it's the obverse of the when have you felt most gratified in your work question. can you think of a time when you have felt like just like you failed in the last 26 years? Have you ever felt like, I'm just not getting through to these guys?
Yeah.
This isn't good for anybody.
Yeah, there's been a handful of situations over the years where a couple things, I don't engage with crazy or meanness,
That's a great personal rule right there.
Right.
I will not engage with crazy. I love that.
And I remember being in a meeting with a guy, and there's a knock on the door, and his secretary said, "Oh, somebody from the sheriff's office is here," and with a summons, because he had anger issues. And I felt the hair on the back of my neck go up, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to help this person. There have been times where I think you have to always know where your pay grade stops, and you're just really not qualified to help a person or a company. And, I can think of, obviously not naming names, one situation where that was the case. And then also, I'm a big believer, because I have a lot of good friends who do what I do. When you do something for this many years,
right,
and there's a chemistry that's got to be right between you and that client. And so frequently when I start working with an organization, we'll kind of start with a small engagement, just so the owner and the team and I can work together, and we can both see if mutually we feel like it's a good fit. So, sometimes they're better off with a younger male, or, whatever the case may be.
So Jeannie, we touched ever so briefly on CG1 and the one-page strategic plan, but we really didn't deep dive into it very far. So talk about what those two things are and how they help companies, to the extent that you're not divulging anything super confidential.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the fact I've been doing this for 26 years. And one of the things I discovered as I worked with these companies is that the strategic planning process tends to be overwhelming for people. Really, probably the majority of people, if you ask them what their experience has been with strategic planning, it's not been positive.
Right.
There was, I think, in the past, consultants sort of charged by the size of the 3-ring binder that, the plan came out in. And myself included, I participated in a lot of planning engagements that I just thought were worthless in terms of the ongoing ability to implement the plan. So when I created the CG1 and trademarked CG1, what I was looking for, and the one is really meaningful. It's really getting the idea of taking something complex and communicating it in a simple way, getting that entire management team on one page with one vision, going in one direction. And so fundamentally, the process is designed in a way to take something complex and communicate it in a simple way and make it not intimidating. Because for a lot of people, writing a business plan or a strategic plan feels a lot like writing a term paper in school, and or like updating a resume. It's just overwhelming. They don't know where to start. And so the CG1 process was created in a way to make that process more engaging, that people can understand it. There's a lot of great planning processes out there in the marketplace. Everybody is familiar. Most people are familiar with Traction. That seems to probably be kind of the household name, if there is such a thing. And for me, I wanted a process that I could incorporate some of the other tools that I use in terms of the personal assessments, the business assessments, and flexibility. I kind of visualize it. Every client that I start working with comes to me from a different point of view and with a different burning need. And so it's almost like a circle, and so for instance, sometimes, I'll be referred to a company and I'll think, okay, well, in the CG1 process, we're going to start with creating the plan. Well, and the more we talk and understand what's going on, the more it's obvious that the immediate need is more with that leadership team, and we have to come at it with the personal assessments first. And so anyway, having my own process kind of enabled me to create it in a way that's flexible. for the different clients I work with.
So the one in CG1 is the one-page strategic plan.
Well, not necessarily, but the one-page plan, as I was evaluating tools in the marketplace many years ago, I discovered it's a web-based planning software, and it just happens to align perfectly with the CG1 philosophy. It's kind of not an added benefit that they both have one in the name.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah, the one-page plan philosophy is similar. You got to, if you can't get your plan on one page, how are you going to be able to communicate it?
So, is that something that we can post on our site? Can we talk about what's on the one-page strategic plan?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's on the one-page strategic plan?
So, Peter Drucker's kind of the father of planning. And what I love about the way he approached planning was to ask, rather than using a planning term, because we've all heard these different planning terms and we get confused with, every consultant interprets the word vision and mission differently.
Mm-hmm.
So Drucker would say, and the one-page plan is structured in a way to ask a question and said. So there's 5 questions. What are we building? Why do we exist? And what are our values? How are we going to grow this company, over the long term, the longer horizon? And then kind of getting down to the more tactical, over the next 12 months, what are those projects that we need to tackle that are going to make a difference in the sustainability and the foundation for this company? And then what do we need to measure? And so it's the combination, kind of like I talked about earlier, I was really describing it, where you start high level and drill down.
What are we building? Why do we exist? And then the third one I missed.
Well, why do we exist? I always include what are our values, because that's part of your why.
Our values. But I thought there was a third one that I missed.
Yeah, then how are we going to build this business over time?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And then what are the projects we need to tackle, and what do we need to measure?
Yeah.
God, that is so simplified and so intuitive. And yet, you're right. People fill 3-ring binders with and actually I will tell you that 7.5 years I've had this law firm, and we have gone through 3-4 iterations of strategic plans, and I actually found the creation of the strategic plan pretty gratifying and fun. Probably though because of who I am and how I like to build things from an organizational standpoint. Like the funnest thing for me is getting up and doing like a group like SWOT analysis. And but the part that isn't fun, the part that I just have not been able to really figure out until recently. I think that we're really onto something now. But for 7 of those 7.5 years, the hardest part was the accountability part.
Yep.
That our strategic plans, we would put 30, 40 hours into them, and they would sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then a year,
you're not alone.
Yeah. So I think that we're onto something now, but how do you get your one-page plan to stick?
Yeah. It really is, and I bet this is what you guys do. It really is the consistency of bringing visibility to what's in the plan. And that sounds so simplistic.
Yeah.
But because it's, when it does go on a shelf. So bringing visibility to it. And I'll tell you, this is something it's been even in recent years where it's dawned on me. This is a barrier that I have to help my clients with. And so I don't know if you experience this with your team, but one of my clients, one of the members of the team, at the end of the year, we do our offsite planning, and we were talking about where we fell short, things we accomplished over the year. And he looked at me in all sincerity and said, "Jeannie, I've realized something. I don't see time." And it was kind of like that movie where the guy says, "I see dead people."
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't, like, I don't know about you, but for me, I see time all the time, He doesn't think that way. And so,
like, in the sense that he only sees open space.
Yeah.
And he has lots of patience, and it'll take him as long as it'll take.
Yeah, he's a creative.
Wow. Well,
He's
that's
a creative.
fantastic.
Yeah. So it's sort of in line with that, the second part of that is people don't know how to reverse engineer and create a project timeline. You know, it takes, I guess it's a problem solving skill that not everybody has to reverse engineer an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is probably one of the biggest things I've learned. I'll be curious to hear if you guys do that. But what I'm finding is a lot of people really need somebody to help hold their hand and talk them through that. Okay, I know in 6 months, I need a touch plan to stay in front of our biggest clients. Now, how do I break that down? Or we need to replace our CRM system. And ideally, we'd have that done in 6 months. So how do you reverse engineer that into milestones? And a lot of people just don't have that skill.
Yeah. Boy, that's a great question. And that is definitely one value that a coach can provide, right? In our case, and I don't know if you were asking me.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I am curious because it sounds like you are doing a better job at that.
Well, so, and like I said, we are 4-5 months into EOS right now, which by the way, I mean, I think that the real difference between what you do and what Jeanne Coughlin did is just a function of marketing, right? The reason that I've been hearing about that, from my own peer group and coach is because, that book is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so we need to get your book out there, Jeanne.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. And, but it sounds like you guys have, well, I mean, the other difference is Jeanne Coughlin doesn't coach anymore, right? But Jeanne Coughlin does.
Exactly.
Right? And so you can help people actually apply your system in a way that, they may not be getting there. But at any rate, so I was in the military. I was in the Army for 10 years. And in my last year in the Army, I was in Iraq in 2003. And I spent a year over there and approximately a year over there. And everything we did was mission-based. And so our job was to, I was a transportation officer. So I was a convoy commander and I had my own platoon. And I was also the executive officer at the company. And so pretty much everything that I did actually did have a time component to it. There, yes, of course, there are wish list items that you put up there. But for me, learning how to prioritize and how to create benchmarks and time deadlines and stick to them was kind of like a life or death thing.
Yeah. Wow. And that's powerful.
Yeah. And I was in my 20s,
Wow.
I think I was through most of that time. And I think I was like 31 or 32 in Iraq. And I was leading soldiers that were twice my age, and so I had to learn how to build consensus and how to create some accountability. You would think, therefore, that my strategic plan wouldn't sit on the shelf, right? But
well, I think it's got to be different in a culture like that where everybody assumes it's command and control, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I definitely learned the value of buy-in too, right? I mean, I think you have to see this with your clients all the time.
Yeah.
If you can get everyone to buy in,
yep,
and to understand the why of it all, that's huge.
It is huge.
And then the last piece is prioritizing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some benchmarks that you're just gonna hit,
right? That
you have to hit,
right?
And then there are others that we're gonna do, and we're gonna give it everything we've got.
Yep. Well, sorry, Alex, but don't you also think that part of the problem is we all tend to be overly optimistic when we plan and when we create timelines?
Yes.
And I'll have that done in 60 days. Well, you still have your day job to, So, by the way, one of the things that I love, and anybody can look this up online, is a year on a page calendar. And so it's literally got an entire year view on a page, and
that's interesting.
It's compelling because it really is a visual reminder of how few working days there really are in a year. You know, you mark out the ones you're going to be traveling and on vacation and whatever. So
that's a great pro tip, because I think that there are a lot of us who think visually better than we do auditorily or in any other format.
Right.
So we use Gantt charts a lot.
Right, exactly.
Especially for litigation and especially for like long deals.
Right.
And seeing how all the different tasks interact with each other.
Yeah, that's great.
Is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I haven't. I might steal that. The year in review.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess it's the year forecast on a
I think it's called
calendar.
year on a page.
Year on a page.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down.
So do you think that they taught you those skills in the military, or did they see that you had the, competency or raw talent?
Well, there was, it's, you kind of get thrown into it. But there's definitely a lot of officer and leadership training, that the best thing that the Army does and that the military does is train young people to lead lots of people who are totally unlike them, and they throw you in your 20s into combat situations and into really stressful situations. And so there's a lot of on-the-job training, but there's also the leadership training.
That's great.
Up front, yeah. I wrote down when you and I met for coffee this quote, and I want you to talk about it.
Okay.
And the quote is, "Slow is smooth and smooth is fast."
Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Talk about that.
Okay. So I actually, another consultant shared that with me, that apparently is a saying with the Navy SEALs. And that really resonated with me because I think I tend to move fast. I think you do too. And, tend to probably be inclined to being a little bit ADD, and
there's no inclination. I am full on ADD. Molly's worse than me though. Molly, if you're listening, you're worse than me. We both know. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. So, being thoughtful and deliberate. And I think in some ways it goes back to that idea of being patient with change, and especially when it comes to dealing with people. And this is where the personal assessments are so critical, because the majority of the population prefers a steady pace. They would rather not have change. It's their natural behavioral style. And so, I really, it's an important mantra for me to be able to, I think when you're thinking smooth and slow, you're more focused on the individual and their needs and, the emotion behind what's happening versus just getting the transaction done.
Yeah. I love that quote. I was thinking about it in terms of when you are frenetic and frantic.
Yeah.
You will get a lot of things done in a short period of time, but without seeing the bigger picture.
Right.
And so, but when you slow things down and you're patient and you see that you're able to see that big picture, then you're able to get to that end much faster. Yeah. Right. So,
well, it's a great point. And I'm sure you're familiar with the Eisenhower matrix of time.
Yeah.
Urgency and importance.
Yes.
And that whole idea of these game-changing projects that are in the plan that are going to be capacity builders in your business are never in quadrant 1, which is urgent and important.
Right.
That's the frenetic. They're always in quadrant 2, which is important but not urgent.
Yep.
And you got to slow down to be in quadrant 2, and you don't get the adrenaline rush and the return of that quick fix or solving a problem. So you're right. That's key.
Jeannie, we are going to take a short break, a planned break.
Okay.
And then when we come back from this break, we are going to do the lightning round. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, boy. I hope so. We'll find out.
Folks, we will be right back. Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. I am CEO of the Gertzberg Law Firm and Cover My Six, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about something special we're doing at Cover My Six. If you own or run a business, I want you to go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify for a no-cost business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person, go over your customer contract, your employee handbook, and your other key legal documents, and help you spot any legal minefields that they see. We'll also give you some guidance on how to stop those minefields from blowing up your business. So go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify and to sign up. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, Jeanne Coughlin, are you ready?
Okay, bring it on.
All right. So the lightning round is usually delivered in two phases, one by our fearless, intrepid co-host Molly Gebler, who's not here, and for whom I will deliver her lightning round questions, though clearly not as well as she would, and then mine.
Okay.
So Molly's first lightning round question is, Jeanne, what are you binging these days?
Oh, I love it. Okay. So we got rid of cable a couple of years ago.
Me too.
Everything we watch now is streaming.
Yeah.
So Victoria, burned through Victoria, which I want to say that was maybe a Netflix original. And then because we were all enjoying the British history of the royal family, I had no idea.
Did you watch The Crown before that?
Yeah. Then we
Crown.
moved on to The Crown. We just finished The Crown. And then literally as of this weekend, we picked back up on Stranger Things.
Interesting.
Did you ever see that?
No, my teenage boys love Stranger Things, but people love it.
Yeah, well, it takes place in the 80s, so it's like a blast from the past, all the music and the hairstyles. And
I should watch that.
Yeah.
So Victoria, Queen Victoria, obviously. I've been actually binging a lot of British history too, and flipping between series and then movies.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Well, there's so much good stuff about Winston Churchill out there.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, I'm hijacking Molly's question. The second Molly lightning round question is, finish the sentence.
Okay.
A perfect day for Jeanne Coughlin is.
Okay. So, I would say for me, if I get to the end of a day, I'm like, oh man, this was a great day. I'm going to feel productive. I just have to admit it. You know, I am not a workaholic, but I just like to feel like I accomplished something. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be considered a perfect day if I spent time with people I cared about. You know, if I was interacting with people, whether it's, so, you know, this could be business or personal. Obviously, the perfect day, I'm on an island somewhere in Hawaii sipping a drink. But for your average day, you know, being productive, being with people I care about, learning is a huge motivator for me. Love to learn, and then probably some outside time I really value.
Okay.
Try to get outside even in the winter.
Like what are you doing outside?
Usually hiking, walking. We have been skiing in the winter, but I'm finding as I get older, my appetite for downhill skiing is kind of waning a little bit. So tried cross country skiing this past winter, and
did you like it?
It's going to take some time.
Yeah, I can't. I love the downhill skiing, even though the last time I did it, I broke my collarbone.
Oh, geez.
2 years ago. I can't wait to get back on the skis. But the cross country skiing, no, thank you.
Oh yeah, it's hard work.
Oh my goodness, it's not just hard work, but you must be wired differently than me, because I can't deal with the monotony of it. You know,
well, I haven't done it that much yet, so stay tuned.
But it is great.
That would be my problem.
It's a great core workout, a great lower body workout, great aerobic workout. But Like I can go running because there's a constant change of scenery.
Right.
But cross country is slow walking through high snow. Right? No, thank you. People love it though.
Yeah.
A song I never want to hear again is.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. I had a college roommate who played Air Supply. What's the I'm All Out of Love.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to sing it.
Yeah,
it's
that one,
awful.
No. We all know it.
Awful.
We all know it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
and I apologize to your listeners because now that song is probably going to be stuck in their head.
well, the thing is, I used to hate that question from Molly because it would get a song stuck in my head that I did not want to ever hear. But then I realized that it creates this nice tapestry of songs that other people can't stand, but which you actually think is really like nostalgic.
Song,
yeah. Like I would like to hear that song right now, but you can't stand it.
For real?
Yeah, I mean it's
okay.
I like the old 80s MTV songs. And then lastly, Jeannie, what's on your mind? That's the last of the Molly questions.
Ooh, that's a hard one. So we have two daughters. They're both in college. And so we have an empty nest. So probably front and center for me. I told you at the beginning of the interview, we were with some neighbors doing a bonfire over the weekend. And, they all have school-age kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. You get to this point and your life is so much about your kids and their sports and their activities. And then all of a sudden you turn around, you're like, wait, what just happened? Where'd the last 20 years go? So that's been on my mind. And there's a really cool exercise that I do. I facilitate a peer advisory group, and it's a Lifeline where you go through and you write down every year of your life. And again, it's on one page. And you kind of do the highs and lows and annotate that on the page. So I've been working on going back and updating that. It's a good way to kind of bring perspective.
Yeah. It's I mean, you want to talk about perspective. So while you're experiencing that, I just put my third kid on the kindergarten bus the other day.
Oh no.
Right. And she's 6, and I've got 3 kids. She's the last, and it never fails, Jeannie. To a person, to a bus, I cry like a little baby when I see them get on that bus on that first day, and they got their backpack on, and it's too big for their back, and they waddle up that. And I just, this happened last Thursday. I cried like a baby.
It's tough because you suddenly realize you're sending them off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you cry when you sent your daughters off to college?
You know what? I didn't want them to see me upset. So I kind of held it in.
You waited till you got home.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, you handled those lightning round questions pretty well, but we're going to get serious now.
Okay.
Well, first, before we get serious, this is a kind of a serious one. So we honor our good friend Christy George, who publishes a magazine called Neighbors, with this question, which we call the Christy. And this question is, if you could interview anyone who ever lived, who would it be?
Oh, it's such a great question. I love to learn. I'm a high theoretical. So that for me is almost impossible to answer, really, because I love history. I love learning. So I guess I'll have to kind of base the answer to that question. A binge before Victoria and the Crown was the John Adams miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll pick him. Just
sure.
Man, it would have been cool to really.
He's an interesting guy.
Wouldn't it be cool to bring him forward into our time and have him look around and.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just that was so well done.
My answer to that question, it comes from that same time period. Mine is Ben Franklin.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fascinating to know what any of the founding fathers, if they woke up today, would think of where we are. Jeez, oh man. Okay, now now is the time for Alex Gertzberg's lightning round questions.
Okay.
So, you are shipwrecked on a desert island for a minimum of 3 months, but potentially for the rest of your life. You don't know.
Yeah.
But you may bring with you any single author's entire bibliography. Who's the author?
Well, okay. So whether I'm there for 3 months versus forever
You
makes
don't know.
a big difference.
But it could be forever.
Well, because the practical side of me is going to get some survivalist books.
Interesting. All right.
I don't know of any particular authors, but how about the Dummy's Guide to Surviving on a Desert Island?
That is very practical.
I'll take that for 10, Alex. If I'm going for the fun, trying to take my mind off the fact I'm on a deserted island and probably going to die there, probably some of the fiction series like C.S. Lewis or J.K. Rowling, something escape reading.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to be there the rest of my life, I don't need to read a business book. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People is not really going to help me on the island.
If there was you're right, like the 7 Habits of highly effective survivalists would be
right.
good. Somebody answered that question with the Army Survival Manual.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
that was more specific.
That would be good. Same shipwreck, same desert island, same unknown period of time.
Mm-hmm.
You may bring with you any single musician's entire discography.
Okay.
Who's the musician?
So I'm one of those people with music. I really have just broad taste. About the only kind of music I really don't like is sort of that hardcore rock and roll. I've got a knife in my back and I'm screaming kind of music. But I probably would go for the soundtrack, like a John Williams or John Barry. So Out of Africa, I don't know if you've heard the soundtrack. One of those guys, they've got like a long list of cool soundtracks. Right.
John Williams has, hundreds of
he was
movies.
Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman. And
so I'd probably go that direction.
Yeah, there's a really good John Williams channel, I guess, in air quotes, on Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
Or no, it's a playlist.
Well,
yeah, and there's hundreds of songs on there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that's typically what I'll do on Amazon Prime. I'll go onto the music and just do something like that with a playlist.
What's another really good screen? I don't know, what do you call them?
Soundtrack?
Well, yeah, but like the composer, screen composer is Philip Glass.
Oh, really?
Do you know Philip Glass? So The Hours is his, and it is very intense, but also very minimalist, and it's great for meditation, and it's great for like if you're the kind of person that does like affirmations, or if you want to just get inspired, or if you want to just like focus. Like I need music when I work.
That's so interesting.
But Philip Glass is great for all of those things, and he has a ton of soundtracks too.
So you can work and be productive with words in the music?
No,
that's
what I mean.
You gotta have
it's all
instrumental.
Yeah,
okay.
It's all instrumental.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Those were the appetizers. Those were the softballs. Now
geez.
I'm just turning it up here, Jeannie.
Okay.
What is the habit or routine that you do on a regular, consistent basis?
Yeah.
From which you have gotten the most mileage?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love this question actually because I'm kind of a fanatic about habits. In fact, I'll recommend James Clear.
Oh, yeah.
If we talked
Atomic
about
Habits?
him.
Yeah. I just finished that. That's a great book.
Yeah. And I've been getting his emails. He used to do a weekly email for years before he wrote the book. So a big one is I start every day the same way. So whether it's a weekday, weekend, and it involves, the quiet time component to get focused and grounded, and then the exercise time. And I know like blah, 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 exercise every day. But the thing I do that I think is a game changer is I take my planner with me on the treadmill. So then while I'm getting the physical exercise, I start with the year on a page, and then I go to the month and the day. And it's just really great for getting focused and getting insight. I will also, this is kind of a less whatever, but flossing every day.
Yeah. I like that one too.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It really is huge.
Yeah.
It's a habit you got to get into.
Yep.
It's hard.
That's a good one. It's funny because you hear that occasionally from people. And so let me ask you what I always ask them whenever I hear it. And I have my own answer. So
Okay.
you go first. Why do you think flossing is one of those daily rituals, daily habits that has given you the most mileage?
Yeah. Well, from a health perspective, there's evidence that, flossing your teeth helps your heart health. I mean, it really, not to get disgusting, but, there's decay and whatever that gets into your entire body systems.
Yeah.
Also, just from a dental health,
Yeah.
That's what my dentist finally kind of beat that into my head, that as you get older and if you want, healthy teeth, you got to do that.
Yeah.
So, and the funny thing is, back to the atomic habits, until that became a habit, I carry around a moleskin notebook that I every day have things I track for myself, because I practice what I preach with my clients. And so for it probably took a year. Every day it was like, weight, exercise, some of the other important things I track every day, and flossing. Is that lame? But
no, that's great.
That's what it took.
One of the reasons, so I started flossing like in my 30s, right? Like and then my dentist basically kind of dared me to just do it for 21 days and then try to break it afterwards and then see if I'll ever go back. When I did,
yeah.
I've never gone back.
Oh yeah.
That and making my bed first thing.
Yeah.
The reason I like both of those things is because of the meaning that I attach to them.
Yep.
And the meaning I attach to flossing, in addition to all the health benefits of it, is I'm the kind of person that takes care of my body, right?
Exactly.
That then creates all of the other things that you do throughout the day that are healthy for your body.
Yeah.
And then the meaning that I attach to making my bed first thing, I got this from a YouTube speech. It's a graduation speech that a guy named Admiral McRaven gave to, I think it was VMI, Virginia Military Institute, I think. And he said, make your bed. And if that's the only thing you do, then you will have accomplished something right when you wake up. And you will get your mind and body into the mindset of accomplishment.
Right.
Right.
I think that's true.
Yeah. You're more which I then extrapolate into, so you're more likely to be productive, and you're more likely to be the kind of person that accomplishes something right off the bat. Right.
Well, I think I think James Clear says this in his book, that every decision you make is a vote for the kind of person you want to be.
Yes.
And it's all about being that best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, good answers.
Okay.
The final lightning round question, which I know you're prepared for, is, what is an embarrassing thing about yourself that very few people know?
Yeah.
And for extra bonus credit, that no one else knows.
Oh. Well, I've got a lot of embarrassing things I've done, but most of them I think a lot of people know.
We got lots of time, Jeanne.
Okay. So I will share this. I was chairman of the board at Cozy in 2004 and 2005. And at the end of your chairmanship, they roast you.
Yes.
And I had, they brought a roaster who was not only the spouse of a board member, but she was my best friend since middle school. So she had dirt on me that most people that were on the Cozy board with you wouldn't have.
They brought in a ringer for your roast?
Oh my gosh, my roast was,
I like I really like the creativity there.
Yeah, it was very unfair. So anyway, when I was in my corporate training program for my first job, they put us up in these corporate-owned departments, and there was a group of 6 of us in the training program that were just out of college. And we'd gone to hear a Chuck Berry concert. It was like a party in the park. Do you remember? Cleveland used to have those back in the day.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. So anyway, after the party in the park, we went back to the rented corporate apartments and thought it would be a good idea to go swimming. But the swimming pool was closed. So somebody called law enforcement, and we did get in a little bit of trouble for that. But nothing that went on my permanent record. And I really can't think of something embarrassing I've done that nobody knows about. I think I'm too much of an open book, probably.
Okay. The judges will accept that answer.
Okay. I'm going to be pondering that. I'll probably wake up at 3 a.m. Something will come to mind.
Well, what we usually do is tell our listeners, if you know of something way more embarrassing, feel free to email ag@gertzberglaw.com.
Oh, I'm sure they're out there. Absolutely.
Jeannie, I formally declare this podcast episode a success. Thank you very much for coming
Alex.
on our show. Is there anything that you're doing, that you're working on, that you're thinking about, that you want to get out there into the universe that we haven't talked about?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. Real quick, 2 things. In addition to my work with the planning and the coaching clients, I facilitate a peer advisory group for women that run businesses that are 2 or more in million in revenue, yearly revenue. And I'm starting a peer advisory group for next generation family business leaders.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and people definitely need to find you if they are thinking about getting a coach for themselves or for their business, or if they have questions about what you do, and your contact information is going to be all over our site. So make sure you guys go to thebest.Podcast.Ever.com. There's nothing pretentious about that.
No, not at all.
At all, right? And you'll find Jeannie's contact information there. And if you've listened this far, folks, then you are Jeannie's husband and Jeannie's 2 daughters, and my mom and Molly and maybe Nellie, and I believe hundreds of other folks out there. And if you've listened this far, that means you really wanted to hear Jeannie or me, but more likely Jeannie. And there is probably a way on your device to rate and review this show. And if there isn't on whatever platform you're listening to right now, then just go to like our Facebook page, or more preferably to iTunes, and then and say a whole bunch of nice things about us, and rate us highly. And that would be awesome. That would mean a lot to me. So thanks for listening, folks, and we will see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we thank you for listening. And remember to check out the Gertzberg Law Firm if you're starting, running, growing, or transitioning a business, or if you need to create or update your wills, trusts, or estate plan. Our firm and our lawyers are among the highest caliber and well-recognized professionals in the field. We are veteran-owned, have the highest rankings from Super Lawyers and the other key attorney rating organizations. And we were recently added to the coveted Weatherhead 100. More than being respected by our peers, our clients rely on us to successfully defend them in court, help them avoid the courtroom with our Cover My Six service, protect their assets, and for many non-legal business services like recruiting and business development. More than just litigators, we are trusted advisors, problem solvers, and growers of businesses. Let us help you and your company. Call us or find us online to learn more. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.